Have you ever seen one of those commercials or maybe an ad on social media or somewhere that says, if you have more than $10,000 of credit card debt or unsecured debt, please call us now, 1-800 blah, blah, blah. Have you ever wondered if that's legit or if it's a scam? Do you have more than $10,000 of credit card or unsecured debt yourself and would like to know if that really works, if those programs are legit? Are you scared to call the 800 number because you're not sure if it's a scam or not? Well, I've actually personally had experiences with some of those companies, and I'm going to share with you what I found out and what I learned, and then my personal experience with working with one of these companies. Welcome to the channel. My name is Paris Clough, and this is Financial Self-Reliance. I absolutely love helping people manage, protect, and grow their money. I would really appreciate it if you would hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, especially if you get value from this video. That will help the channel grow, and then we can help more people become financially independent and financially self-reliant. So there's a lot of companies out there that talk about something called debt negotiation or debt settlement. What does that mean? What are the pros and cons? What are the frequently asked questions? And what are the answers to those frequently asked questions? First of all, I want you to know that debt settlement is legit. It's not a scam, and it works. However, I will also tell you that it's not for everybody. There are certain parameters or certain conditions under which it becomes a really good or viable option, and there's things and reasons why it's not such a good idea or such a viable option. So it just depends on where you are in your debt journey and what kind of a burden you have and what kind of a burden you're under. And if you can really shoulder that burden by making extra payments, or if you're just drowning and treading water every month. Now, I can't speak to every company that's out there, and I bet you there's some people out there that are scammers that are going to take your money and run. Definitely want to do your homework before you get involved with any one of these companies, but I promise you the company that I'm going to share with you right now is a company that I've actually partnered with, and I have an inside contact that will work with anyone and everyone that mentions that they saw this video and that they learned about debt negotiation and debt settlement from Paris Clough at Financial Self-Reliance. You can also hit me up in the description below where my email address is. It's hello@financialselfreliance.net. If you send me an email saying something about debt settlement or debt management, I'll make sure that we connect and I'll get you in contact with a specialist at this particular company. Quite honestly, you can do debt settlement and debt negotiation yourself. It's just a big headache, especially if you have a bunch of debt and a lot of different accounts that debt is spread across. All right, so let's take a look at the website here. The company that I have personally used and personally vetted is a company called Debtmerica. Debtmerica Relief is a legit company. They actually do produce the results they promise, and I can promise you that, as I'll share with you in a minute, because I've personally used them. So here you see on the main page it says you may resolve debt in as little as 24 to 48 months. Low monthly program payment and no upfront fees. And there's an asterisk there for a reason. So you click this button to get a free quote. Now if you go to this website, that's great, but make sure that you mention that you were referred by Paris Clough at Financial Self-Reliance. So let's take a look at their frequently asked questions, and we'll go through some of the answers. First one I want to go to is, what is debt settlement? Now you can read while I'm talking, but basically debt settlement is where they take a total dollar amount and they negotiate pennies on the dollar. Sometimes that's 50 cents on the dollar. Sometimes it's 25 cents on the dollar. Sometimes it's 75 cents on the dollar. It just depends on the negotiation that you get into. And so basically if you have a $10,000 debt, you could literally negotiate paying only $5,000 and having that debt completely cleared by only having to pay $5,000. Now there's a process whereupon that happens, and so you got to make sure it's the right process for you to be able to do, because it can affect some other things like your credit score and some other things that we'll talk about in a minute. But debt settlement is where you negotiate with your creditor to pay a lesser amount of money than what you actually owe, and you'll be surprised how often they're willing to take whatever they can get, and then they clear the loan out and you're completely debt free. It actually works. One of the questions here is, debt settlement a better choice than bankruptcy? And for me it was. I had a situation where I just about lost everything. In fact, I'll put a link in the description below to the video that I did with somebody else where we talked about how we survived the last economic crash that happened in 2008 and 9. But during that time, I just about lost everything, and I didn't want to go into bankruptcy. I didn't want to have that on my record, so instead I did debt settlement and debt negotiation, and this is the company that I used. It works, they're great, they're professional, and they're going to do the right thing for you. Now the process whereupon they negotiate and settle those debts has changed a little bit since I went through it, but it's definitely worth it if you're in the right situation. So is it a better choice than bankruptcy? For me it was. And that was something that I made a choice on. I chose to do debt settlement instead of bankruptcy. So what makes you a good candidate for debt settlement versus some of the other debt payment programs? I know we've talked about the debt snowball, we talked about debt avalanche, we've talked about the cash flow index plan. What makes debt settlement different is that when you can't manage your monthly payment and you can't put any extra towards that, and you're literally going either backwards or just treading water every month and it doesn't look like it's getting any better, that's when you actually should look at debt settlement, because realistically, if you don't have any extra money or any other way to pay those debts off any faster on your own, then debt settlement is a great opportunity for you, because you'll be able to get out of debt more quickly. They'll lower your monthly payment, they'll free up some cash flow, and they'll be able to take care of those settlement of those debts for you. Now, if you can pay extra on your payments, let's just do the debt snowball, or we'll do the debt avalanche. But if you can't, then debt settlement is probably the right thing for you, especially if you're actually in a genuine hardship. Let's say that you had an accident or a health condition, or maybe you lost your job, or some kind of economic situation that's happened to you where you're genuinely in a real hardship and you just can't make the payments. That's when debt settlement can take over. Not only will they negotiate the settlement of the balance, but they can also negotiate the monthly payment for you so that it's more affordable and it's more doable and manageable for you to be able to continue to make those payments towards building up enough cash to make those settlements. One of the big questions is, will debt settlement affect your credit score? And unfortunately, it will. What happens is, in order for you to be able to settle, the creditor needs to see that you're in a hardship, or needs to know that you're not going to pay them. So you actually have to be delinquent in your payments. You literally stop paying them, and then you get notices on your credit report that you haven't paid. You get 30-day, 60-day, 90-day notices and longer. And that will wreck your credit score in the short term. Temporarily, your credit score will have a negative effect. What you'll do instead is you'll pay the money you would have paid to the creditor into an escrow account, and then that escrow account, as it builds up, it builds enough cash to then be able to negotiate. So what the negotiators here, what this company will do, what Debtmerica will do, is, let's say you owe $10,000 on one credit card and you're late for 1 or 2 months. They're going to start calling you and harassing you for a minute until you enroll with the Debtmerica program, and then you have a Debtmerica relief specialist that handles all those calls for you. And what happens is that they'll negotiate. They'll say, okay, look, we've got $2,000 that we can put towards this $10,000 if you'll settle for $2,000. And the creditor might say, you're crazy, I'm not doing that. So you wait another 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 months goes by, and maybe you have $5,000. So now they call the creditor back and say, we have $5,000 now. Would you be willing to settle your $10,000 debt for a $5,000 payment? If they say yes, you just got 50 cents on the dollar out of debt. And that's conceptually how it works. The negotiator, who's trained and professional and does this all day long, will negotiate a rate or a price or a payoff amount, a settlement amount that's far less than the total amount of the debt, which will get you out of debt in a much faster time frame. Here's the next question. Can I settle my debts on my own? Absolutely. You can negotiate the debts, you can settle the debts on your own. But if you're not a highly trained professional on how to settle, how to negotiate, you're probably going to pay a lot more cents on the dollar than the trained professionals will when they do their negotiations. The other thing is that you're going to have to handle all the creditor calls. As they call and harass you and threaten you and all those things, you're going to have to go through all that process in order to negotiate that yourself. Now, if you hire a company like Debtmerica, they will take a fee. So when they settle on account, they'll take a fee for having done that for you. But for me, it was worth the headache of not having to go through all the harassing calls, deal with all the negotiations. I just sent them a dollar amount every month. They built up an escrow account, they paid and settled, and they took their fee from that. About 2.5 years later, I was completely debt-free. It was really amazing. Another thing to consider is, how will this affect your taxes? Sometimes the IRS considers forgiven debt as actual income. So it's important to recognize that you may end up paying taxes on the difference between what you owed and what you settled for. So just keep that in mind. That's another thing to just consider. It didn't happen to me when I went through that process, but it's possible that it could happen. And so it's important to recognize that that's a real possibility. 13 years ago, when I was going through the 2008, 9, and 10 economic downturn, I had to go through this situation, and just over 30 months, I think 31 or 2 months, and I was completely debt-free. My credit score was in the low to mid 500s. One of the things that I noticed was that as soon as I was done and completely debt-free and I was able to go to a cash-only system, I didn't have any credit cards or I didn't use any debt for 2 or 3 years. If I couldn't pay for it with cash, I didn't buy it. And so I lived completely on cash for several years. And then when it was time for me to get my credit score back up, I went and learned how to increase my credit score, which will be the topic of another video at another time. What I realized is that I was able to increase my credit score exponentially faster because I had no debt that was dragging me down. Even though my credit score went from mid 700s to the mid 500s because of this debt negotiation program and this debt settlement program, Once I was able to rebuild my credit, it went right back up to the mid 700s really quickly. And now I have more credit than I need. In fact, I just had a credit card recently, just increased my available credit to an amount that I'm like, I'm never gonna even go close to that amount. But I have that now available because my credit score is so high, because I learned the lesson. I got out of debt and I've stayed out of debt, and debt settlement was the way that I did it. If your situation sounds like debt settlement would be a good fit, make sure that you email me at hello@financialselfreliance.net. Or if you do go to the website and call them or email them or message them, make sure that you tell them that you were sent by Paris Clough with Financial Self-Reliance. I hope I hear from you soon. I hope that I can help you get connected with one of these specialists to get you out of debt as soon as possible. If debt settlement is right for you, let's make sure it happens. I hope you got a lot out of this video. If you missed the last video that I produced, you can click the link here. You can subscribe to the channel up here, and up here you'll find a video that YouTube thinks you might be interested in. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.